You! Stop! Assassino! Stay alert.
Wait, what?
Wait and see.
The initial idea for my animation came from one of my earlier animations from last year called Uplay, and it was about getting sucked into a video game. In that animation, it was just based on a dream that the character had. So I thought, what if I can take that idea and sort of use it as a promotional video for the Xbox Connect, and really just showing off how much gaming has evolved and how they're getting you to interact with it more, and it almost feels like you're inside the game playing it as yourself. So that's what I was trying to bring across in this video. Quite a lot of pre-production in this project. Started off with just a basic script of what I wanted to happen and what characters I wanted in it, and from there I developed it into a storyboard, which just gives me something to follow while I'm animating the piece. I did a few character sketches and then onto some sketches of different sets that I wanted to build, and from all them drawings I then had to start making the characters and the sets. For the model I needed something that I could actually animate with, so it needed to be easy to move. So to do that I started off with a wireframe body, and then over the top of that I used stuff called epoxy putty. And when you're using this, I recommend you wearing gloves or even something over your face, because it does stink really bad. And after that I just wrapped the figure in foam, which just pads it out, and I had to make the clothes, which wasn't that easy because I had to sew, and that's something I'm not good at, but I got there in the end. Then I had to start on the skin, which was just plasticine, just moulded it together and used a couple of tools to mould the face and stuff, and that was the figure done. I'm happy with how the figure turned out and how it looks, but with it being plasticine, when you move it around and bend it so much, you can sort of see where it's been moved, and you can see wee cracks in it and stuff. So I was going to edit it out, but I decided not to. But if I had more time and I was going to do it again, I would definitely try and make the model in a different way. Just look at different techniques of making models, maybe plastic or something that would be easy to move but wouldn't crack or change shape or stuff like that, so it would look a lot better in the animation. The animation has about 5 different scenes, so that means I would need 5 different sets. So I had to make them, and most of it was all just cardboard, gluing and sticking and printing stuff out and sticking it down. It took me around 2 weeks or so to finish making the sets before I could actually start animating. The way I worked is I hooked up my camera to the laptop with a USB, and then there was a program that came with the camera, and it basically puts everything from the viewfinder on the back of the camera and puts it onto the laptop, so I can see what I'm working on as I'm working on it, and I can check the images to see if they come out alright, if they're in focus or whatever. And from the laptop I can also change the aperture and the shutter speed. One problem this figure has is it doesn't really stand up on its own, so I needed something to hold it up. I always use clear thread and put it around the figure to hold it up, but for this I needed to have it held up the whole way through the animation. so I needed something to hold the string for me, so I came up with this. It's just a tripod with a stick on the end of it, and then the string is wrapped around the stick, and then you just place the figure inside the string. It just makes it easier, and I can raise the tripod up if he's jumping and lower it if he's falling, which makes it a lot easier. But then it creates another problem in post-production, because in most of the frames, nearly all of them, the clear thread can be seen in the background. So I needed to take all the frames with string in them and take them into Photoshop and edit them out, which is a very time consuming process. I would suggest taking a few breaks while you're doing it or listening to music, otherwise you would probably end up throwing your computer out the window or something. The movements in this animation, I wanted them to be quite realistic. I'm sort of used to trying to do realistic movements because I've been animating for 6 or so years, so I feel I'm used to it, but I wanted to try out a technique I've seen by Nick Park, who is the guy that created Wallace and Gromit. I've seen him use a technique where he films himself acting out what he wants the characters to do, so he just looks at that and tries to replicate it in his animation, so he uses himself as reference footage. So I took that technique and did it myself and filmed a few wee things, a few wee movements, and watched them frame by frame as I was animating and tried to replicate them. And yeah, I think it does help. It's a good technique if you're just learning out the movements and not really sure of the type of movements people would do. Reference footage would help out a lot for people like that. So it came to a problem whenever it got to the section in the animation which was supposed to be a first person shooter. The problem is, with the figure that I was using, it was really awkward to get the camera in the right place to make it look first person. For the first section of that, where you can see his feet and his hands, I actually had to take the head off the model and then place the camera where the head would be, so you'd see his arms and his legs. But then after that, when it only had to show his hand, that's when it got tricky. I couldn't position it in the right place, it just wasn't working at all. And then I came up with the idea of making an extra hand out of plasticine and making it the exact same size and length as the one on the model. And because it's plasticine, I just came up with the idea of placing it underneath the lens, and because it's plasticine it would stick to it, so the hand would be in shot. I did put together a schedule of what I wanted to get done each day, and I was trying to follow that, but then as I got into the animation of it, I realised that it was taking longer than I expected. It was taking around 2 days for one scene, and that's around 3 and 4 hours each day. Sound is probably one of the most important things in animation, because it just brings your whole animation to life and helps tell your story better, and it also brings across certain moods that it's just really hard to bring across without any audio. So here's the project file for the finished animation. You can see all the video clips and the sound effects in this window here, mostly all sound effects. If I just zoom in here, you can see all the different sound effects that I used in the video. You can see there's a lot of sound effects. That did take me a while adding all the different sound effects in. But the good thing about the Premiere Pro is I could have as many audio tracks as I wanted, so I could keep adding more if I needed them, and that was helpful because I could overlay the sound effects, so I could have the background music on one layer and the sound effects on another layer, and then if there was talking, put that on another layer and just overlay them. So if I just get a sound effect here and click this arrow here, drops down, and you can see each sound clip has its own yellow bar across it, and now you can click this and drag it up or down, and this just raises the volume or lowers the volume of the sound clip. And that was helpful for me because some sound effects needed to be in the background as ambience, so they needed to be quite low, and then there was other sound effects that needed to be quite high so you could hear them. So you could just drag the sound effect up if you wanted it to be high, and drag it down if you wanted it to be low. So here's the After Effects project for the first special effect in the video, which is me getting pulled into the Kinect. Now before I did this video I didn't really know how to do this effect, so I had to look up some video tutorials on how to do it. They were really helpful and I learned a lot from them, so I would suggest anybody else that is trying to learn more about After Effects that you use tutorials online. There's a lot of really useful tutorials on YouTube that are easy to follow. So I'm just going to explain very briefly what I did for this effect. To start off, I did two things. I filmed raw footage of my living room without me in it, and then filmed myself against a green screen. From there I took the raw footage into After Effects and then placed the green screen footage over the top. So if you just go up to Effects and down to Keying and then Keylight, this is what I used to remove the green background. And there's a lot of Keylight tutorials online and they're really easy to follow, and it's not really that difficult to remove the green. So once I removed the green, I had to touch up the footage because the green screen lighting, it didn't really match up with the lighting of the living room, so I had to adjust a few things like hue, saturation, brightness and contrast, and just try and match it with the living room lighting. Doesn't look perfect, but it's close enough. Now for the actual effect I used a plugin called Trapcode Particular. So if I just zoom in here a bit and you can see the footage of me, and if I just bring it forward here, you can see as it goes on there's a lot of wee dots that you can see, the same colour as my t-shirt. It's supposed to look like it's breaking off, and that's what the particular effect does.
Stay alert.
Wait, what? For the facial expressions and mouth movements in this video I used Photoshop, and for the Assassin's Creed figure, because it was a bit of a more realistic figure, I googled mouths for animation and came up with this image of a couple of different mouths for each letter, and I used that on top of the figure in Photoshop and used a different mouth for each frame that he's talking. But as I'm going to show now, I used a different tool for the model that I made. I went into Photoshop and went to Filter and then Liquify. If I just zoom in here, you can see if I just click and drag, I can drag the eyebrows up to give it a facial expression, and I can also do the same with the mouth. I can bring it in a bit smaller and I can bring it up and make it look like it's sort of opened. And the last thing to do was put it on the YouTube. And the good thing about YouTube is that anybody really can go on and watch your video. They can leave comments, so you're getting feedback on your video basically. And on this video I seem to get a lot of positive feedback. There was people that seemed to really like the video and really enjoyed watching it. So I think it all makes it worthwhile whenever you see all the positive comments, because all the hard work and how long it took to produce the animation, it just makes it all worth it in the end whenever you see all the people that liked it. So yeah, I'm happy with how the whole video turned out in the end, and it's something that I'm really proud of.